first tornado, ladies.
Yeah. Sup, dude. Sup, everyone. Welcome to VomCom, the podcast where we talk about the romantic comedies that we love to hate.
And hate to love. I'm Kat.
And I'm Molly.
This week, in our final week of Glen Powell March Madness, we watched our beloved Twisters. Tornado.
And not only is this the last one in the series of March Madness, this is an extra special episode because we have an extra special guest judge joining us. And that is Aimee.
Sorry. Hey.
I think all of our listeners have heard us talk about Aimee 1,000,000,100 times.
Constantly.
But
I think it's funny, too, that you guys never refer to me in the same way. It'll be like, oh, like my sister, or it'll be like our mutual friend, or it'll be like Aimee. I have pseudonyms.
Yeah.
I feel like at the beginning, we were not mentioning your name. We were like, oh, someone we both know.
Yeah, wank wank. I don't know. We were trying to be like, what if she doesn't want us to talk about her? We were trying to be like, what is that thing? Not confidentiality. Anonymity.
And I appreciate that about you.
But now here you are. Exposing yourself. Not in that way.
Zip down your jumper, bro. Let's see.
What is it? A tank top.
Okay, so we have brought on Aimee for the end of Glen Powell March Madness because we three ladies love Twisters.
Yeah, so I was actually the first one to see this movie. I'm not trying to like brag. I'm just trying to give context to the fact that I was absolutely insufferable after I watched this movie. And I was telling everyone to watch it, and I was like, you gotta watch it, you gotta watch it. I'm pretty sure I saw it like 3 or 4 times in theaters because I kept being like, yeah, you should watch it. And they were like, okay, come with us.
Yeah. And I'm nodding not because you were insufferable, but I'm nodding because you're the one that got all of us onto it with such fervor.
I don't feel like it was marketed in a way that was like, this is a rom-com, but it definitely is one. And that's kind of like what you realize as you're watching it.
Yeah. It's 100% a rom-com.
And maybe it's just because Glen Powell is so gazy.
There's also a love triangle, and there's a lot of tropes, dude.
Yep.
If anybody doesn't know what Twisters is, it came out in 2024, July 19th. I was holding back my insufferability about it because I hadn't watched it. Aimee watched it first out of the three of us, but I knew I was going to like it. Or actually, I was kind of nervous about what it was going to be like. You know? So I was like, I'm holding back. I don't want to put it on blast and be so excited. And then everyone's like, oh, it was actually whatever. So I was a little scared. But then Aimee watched it and then gave me all the confidence in the world. And I was so excited.
I didn't even want to see it. So, like, I'm surprised it was on your radar.
It was on my radar because of Glen Powell, to be quite honest. And Daisy Edgar Jones. So
Glen Powell, the reason for the season.
The reason for the madness. Let's be honest.
This is everything we worried about if we did a podcast together. We're just like echoing each other's thoughts. We're like one brain cell working together.
Longtime listeners of the podcast know that Molly and I share one brain cell. Little do you all know that it's actually shared amongst 3 people. It's just 2 of them are
working even harder than you first thought.
Yeah. Just actually, you only see 2/3 of the timeshare of brain cell.
Yeah.
Brains.
Not even a whole brain, girl. It's just the one cell bouncing around like Pong.
Like, you know when you watch the Hercules Disney version and the 3 fates share that one eyeball? That's we. We take turns.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like jostling it away from each other constantly.
It's tired, that brain cell. It's exhausted.
And it never sleeps because there's always one of us awake. The sun never sets on our brain cell. We're like the British Empire back in colonial days.
There's literally 1 hour where we're all asleep.
It's like the heart of a very tall man. Just like constantly overworked.
It's so specific.
Yeah. You guys don't ever think that? You ever think about how, like, it's really good that, like, super tall men are always into, like, really short women and really short dudes are always into really tall women because it helps balance out the genes so we don't get too tall so that we don't have hearts overworking in these bodies that can't sustain it.
Like Great Danes. Yeah.
Exactly. Like dogs.
I do think about that when I see a really tall guy. Like when people are like, oh my, like I have been people where I've been like, oh, that guy's really tall. That's nice. But there's a difference between there's a difference between lusting after one because he's attractive and you can like look up at him versus being life partners with one, because then you have to worry about his heart health because literally his heart is working overtime to get blood tip to taint, you know?
I can tell you I've never had that thought before.
Really?
I've never thought about a tall man's heart health, which honestly, kind of heartless of me. And you know what? The one thing I'm thinking about is how can I get that heart pumping more, you know what I'm saying? Climb that like a tree.
How can I get that man into some cardiac arrest?
It's Adam Driver I'm talking about, giving Adam Driver a heart attack.
Specifically about scaling his nose.
Guys, how tall is Glen Powell?
Ooh.
Excellent question.
I don't think he's that tall. Can I be honest with you?
What do you think, 5'11"?
I think
No,
he
he's
is
gotta
an
be at least-
I think he's an even 6. How
Mhm.
tall? Okay,
Five
what the
foot-
fuck?
5'11". Who called it?
What is 1.83 meters?
Aimee just
5'11"?
I have a sixth sense.
You're the estimator.
And it's about how tall people are.
That's the estimator.
5'11"?
Yeah, he's not that
Hey,
tall.
5'11" is a good height.
No, it's respectable. It's just not
It's not what
it's
you
just not
thought.
what I thought.
I know this is going to be like contrary to the podcast's beliefs and like memorandum.
Yeah.
I like a short guy.
Oh, no, don't get me wrong, girl.
I think that they're more humble.
Let me tell you something. A short king works harder. And when the bar is on the ground,
It's easier for them to jump over.
that was very good. You saw the opportunity. Look at this. Me making jokes. For those of you who are only listening and not watching, Kat and I are dressed up as cowboys, and Aimee is dressed up as Daisy Edgar Jones in this movie. So she's wearing a flight suit, but Kat and I both have cowgirl style pigtails, and she was just like twirling them, and it was very cute and silly. Putting us back on track. Putting us back on the path of this storm.
Get some neurodivergence in the chat. We got a couple ADHD and an autistic, and that's what I do. I redirect that energy.
You're like our moderator right now. You're moderating us. We're like two little baby ducklings who are just like wandering in a field, and you're trying to keep us to go towards a pond, but we keep wandering off towards some dandelions, and you're like, come on guys, this is better for you. Stay on this path. Oh, now I can see the ashes on your forehead. The whole time I couldn't.
Were you caught in a storm?
Oh my god.
She was twisted.
This is method acting.
Okay, let me tell you this fucking logline, bro.
Okay.
This is on IMDb. Kate Carter, a retired tornado chaser and meteorologist, is persuaded to return to Oklahoma to work with a new team and new technologies.
She's not back.
This movie did come out in 2024.
Mhm.
Aimee mentioned it is directed by Lee Isaac Chung, who is known for a couple of things, specifically Minari, and he did one episode of The Mandalorian.
I don't know what Minari is.
It's a movie that came out in 2020. It has Steven Yeun. It's about I haven't watched it because I know it's intense and I know you will cry. And by you, I mean me. So I have not watched it for that reason because I am not ready to cry about that specific thing.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of awards talk about it. That's the most notable thing that I can recognize. But the best thing about Lee Isaac Chung directing Twisters is that he's actually from Oklahoma.
Oh.
Nice. Okay.
He grew up in Oklahoma, so that I feel like is very important for the vibe of the film, and I think that's why it kind of feels kind of like authentic / like he holds that place, that part of America with like kind of high reverence. He shows it in such a beautiful way.
Yeah, it's like a love letter.
Yeah, those are some of the things that I'm going to talk about later, but the way it's shot, the way he portrays this place and why people stay there is very nice, and it speaks to someone who grew up there and like knows about the place and the area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I would say while watching it, you almost have this idea of like, if you're living in Tornado Alley, like, why would you stay there? Why does it make sense to keep living there if it's possible that at any time your livelihood, your home could be destroyed? Like, that doesn't really make sense. So it's good, I think, that it was definitely directed by someone who can appreciate living there or growing up there.
Yeah. So directed by Lee Isaac Chung, starring Glen Powell, our beloved, and then also starring Daisy Edgar Jones. She was in Normal People and Fresh with Sebastian Stan. And what else has she done? Where the Crawdads Sing, that movie. I think those are the most obvious things for Daisy Edgar Jones. She's really blown up in the last... Well, Normal People came out in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's been big recently.
So Amy's talked a little bit about her history with this movie. Who did you watch it with the first time?
I went to see it with my friend Anna Karina. It was so weird. We had a really good day together, and we just kept like tacking on more things, and we were like, oh, well, why don't we do this? Why don't we do this? And she was like, well, why don't we go see a movie? And we went to the theater, and I didn't expect to like it. I kind of went in being like, well, I'm going to spend time with my friend. It'll be nice because of that. And I came out, and the entire time we were walking out of the cinema, we were being like, and this was great. And this was great. And did you notice this? And I kept, even just like watching the film, I was like, shit. I was like, this is a really good movie. And I was like, I was watching it and I was like, is this a rom-com? Holy, Molly and Kat have to know about this movie. So
And that's when you blew up our chat.
I was texting everybody. I was telling people. I even got my brother Liam to watch it. And Liam was like, to be fair, he only likes movies that like break the box a little.
Or have the mob in them.
One of the things that I've said about this movie again and again when I'm like trying to explain this movie to people, when I'm trying to recommend it, is I'm like, it sets up all of these tropes and it fulfills them. So it is not a movie that is surprising or gives you a twist or anything.
Oh,
Twisters.
one twist.
One or two twists. It doesn't give you any plot twists.
Right.
It fulfills all of the things it sets up as you might expect it to, but it is very satisfying in that regard. This is how it sets it up. This is how what you expect based on the like information you're given.
Yeah.
And it fulfills that, and it's still good despite not like being anything groundbreaking.
It's not groundbreaking. And it's not like revolutionary in any way, aside from the revolutions of a twister. It is silly, but I'm not mad. It's a bit silly, it's a bit unserious, but it's a good story. It feels human. It's satisfying in as much as it sets up those tropes and then it fulfills them. You feel like you're checking off a checklist of your to-do items for the day when you're watching this movie. And then at the end, you leave the theater and you're like, all done, baby, let's go.
Yeah, and I almost want to say that it's almost like a masterclass in how you can be a regular movie, like be a really good regular movie without having to like do the most.
A real movie.
It's a real movie. There's real acting in it and a real soundtrack, a real original country soundtrack. Mm-hmm. For the first time since, what was it, 1980 from Urban Cowboy? And to be honest, it's like stacked. I know, Catherine, that you don't really do like country music per se. You know, Love Actually, the amount of like top tier British actors that are in that. So if you're a British person going into like Love Actually being like, wow, look at how stacked this cast is, that's how this original soundtrack is. You've got Luke Combs, Miranda Lambert, Thomas Rhett, Megan Maroney, Lainey Wilson, Bailey Zimmerman, Jelly Roll, Kane Brown, our girl Shania Twain. Shanazy's in here. She does Boots Don't. And she does it with Breland, which is also another big band.
And Charlie Crockett, right?
Charlie Crockett is in here. Mm-hmm. He does a cover of Ghost Riders in the Sky. So he does a cover of a Johnny Cash song. But then one of his other songs is in it at the very end of the movie, which I don't want to jump ahead too much, but Run Horse Run is at the end of the movie.
I love that song.
Used expertly as well. So a really phenomenal soundtrack with truly like titans of their time, and when you're talking about like country artists.
Agreed. Miranda Lambert.
The time before we started the podcast, I was listening to the whole album because this whole album is banger after banger after banger. Also, hello, Leon Bridges is in there.
Molly, and my favorite song from the entire thing is Out of Oklahoma by Lainey Wilson, Lainey Wilson is a phenomenal country artist. She has some really beautiful stuff. It's that one scene where she gets in the truck and drives home.
Yeah.
That song is phenomenal. Really good stuff.
That's definitely. So, are you saying it's one of your likes, Aimee?
You know what? If I were to sit back and look at this in the format of this podcast, I might say, yeah, it's one of my likes.
Listen. I am. Listen to me. I am not the biggest fan of country music, but it really depends because I love a Shania Twain. I love a Dolly Parton. I love The Giver by Chappell Roan. I love a certain country music. I'll tell you some of my favorite songs on that album.
Please.
Obviously, Ain't No Love in Oklahoma. Ain't no love in
Oklahoma.
It's like beautiful. It's like, wow, welcome to the podcast, Luke Combs.
Friend of the pod, Luke Combs.
Anything Miranda Lambert sings, I'm gonna love. Okay? I love Miranda Lambert.
Miranda?
I fucking lose it every time. The Lainey Wilson song, Out of Oklahoma. Steal My Thunder, also a great one.
Oh, yeah, such a good part of the movie, too.
Which one's the one? Where's the one where the boys are too easy?
It's called Too Easy.
Yeah, I like that song. And then this I didn't hear in the movie, but I heard it for the first time today. Chrome Cowgirl by Leon Bridges. Love of my life, Leon Bridges.
Oh, Don't get me started.
Perfect Dick Leon Bridges.
What?
Do you remember
don't
the
remember
story?
We met your friends.
Oh my
in...
god, yes!
Yeah, Perfect Dick Leon Bridges.
Allegedly, for the purposes of the publication that we are on right now.
We should cut this out of the podcast.
As if he would sue us for saying he's a perfect dick.
You're right.
He's like, thank you. On his Instagram story, it's just a black screen. He says, thank you, VomCom podcast.
Thank you, VomCom podcast, for the SO. So the background of the story is that we went down to New Orleans because all the cool stuff happens in New Orleans. And when we were there, of course, New Orleans did try to kill us, but that's okay. The other side note was that a friend of mine told a story about how her friend hooked up with Leon Bridges when he was in town, which she really buried the lead by not telling us that first thing.
Yeah, like, hi, nice to meet you. My friend hooked up with Leon Bridges and it was a perfect dick.
You gotta lead with that, right? But yeah, apparently he has a really nice, friendly peanuts.
Pureness.
Ian Lawrence.
Hope this all stays in the podcast.
I have a feeling that it will. What about you, Molly? What's the like you have? Say something.
I'll tell you what I like. Where to begin? Girl. Okay.
It's like you're making it up. Like you've never seen the movie.
No, like definitely. Like the thing is just like where to start?
I learned so much about storm safety in this movie.
Get in a basement, girl.
Or overpass? No, not an overpass. Overpasses are the worst.
Underpass.
What's the difference? Guys, seriously, what's the difference between an overpass and an underpass? They're the same thing, aren't they?
The problem is if you go for an overpass, then your boyfriend gets sucked away comically in a scene that's supposed to be truly frightening and scarring, but somehow your sister just ends up laughing beside you.
Okay, girl. Okay, Kat, me and Aimee went to go see this movie together, obviously. And when we went there, Aimee had already seen it once. Twice? Once?
3 times later. I'm sorry.
Don't ever fucking apologize, you bitch. Cowboy bitch. This movie is, like, with love, extremely predictable. I was, like, calling everything that was going to happen right before it happened. Because they lay out the cues in a way that's very, like, easy to read if you have the media literacy, which everyone here does. So, like, I'm watching these things be set up, and I'm like, oh, this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen, and this, and then it happens, like, beat for beat, and it was extremely satisfying. They were saying so many things that were like, oh, you all are too comfortable being happy and just together while chasing this first storm in the intro sequence. Something bad is going to happen. And then the worst thing happened, which is that out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people on their research team chasing this storm, 3 of them got popped by Mother Nature. And at a certain point, they go underneath the overpass. Our girl Kiernan Shipka gets yeeted away by a pile of brush violently. And then homeboy, what was her boyfriend's name at the beginning? Jed,
I think.
I actually don't know what her boyfriend's name is.
It's Jed, girl. And then so he grabs her, pulls her up under the underpass, and they're sheltering in the underpass during this enormous storm. And then he is like over top of her. He's like, grab the railing. He's like, it's gonna be all right. I got you. And then immediately after finishing saying, I got you, he just slides out completely horizontally like he's getting pulled out. He's a pizza getting pulled out of an oven. Like something so horizontal. And he's gone immediately. Don't worry, I got you.
Also, I'm not trying to say it was like intended to be comical, but it was ridiculous.
I laughed.
Her friend was like trying to like climb up the thing, and it was clearly supposed to be very tense, and like I got the general vibe they were trying to give, but the way she was hit by something, I was sitting there going,
she got by a tornado. They become around each part
so bad.
She got hit so bad, and then the whole theater was silent because it's obviously an extremely tense part of the movie. But then I just went, "Ha!" when he got swept away because it was like the Three Stooges.
I didn't know I was recording a podcast with a bunch of sociopaths. Sorry, I'm too much of an empath.
Girl, don't go down that road. That leads to like spiritual psychosis if you lean too much in that direction, I fear.
I understand what you're saying, because it is very jarring, because you're kind of hoping that they're gonna make it up, and then
you're gonna hope it.
Molly and I were kind of counting the very first death flag. For the listeners who don't have an idea what a death flag is, it's like a signal to the viewer that someone is about to die.
They're not long for this world.
Yeah, so the very first death flag comes 3 minutes and 10 seconds in. And it's them being like, this is the day we harness a tornado. And you swiftly get 2 more. You get her on the phone to her mom being like, yeah, we'll be careful. And then you get her boyfriend, Jed, being like,
Jedediah.
He turns to her in the most earnest voice, just like goes, we did it, Kate. And immediately you're like, okay, so they're all dying, like right now.
Oh, and at one point, she even like puts her hands on her hips, kind of Indiana Jones style, and like looks out at the like vista, and she goes, "Man, I love Oklahoma."
Yeah, I know. When I watched it again yesterday, I was like, Jesus, really, truly, the happier this like the movie starts, the worse it gets.
Right,
it is a disaster film. So
there's gonna be a disaster. The genre.
The real treasure is the disasters we saw along the way.
Aww. Very intense beginning to our rom-com, but so this very tragic thing happens to her. She then moves to New York City.
And her hair goes fully blonde so that you can tell that time has passed. One thing I did notice about Kate that felt like a good directing decision, like as far as set direction goes, you see her bedroom in her like flat that's like right next to a train station after she wakes up from a nightmare where her dead boyfriend is like hugging her, being like,
that really
right up to her throat.
Yeah.
It was so creepy, and it is not connected to any other part of the movie. There's no other parts that are filmed or shot in the same way, and there are other suggestions that she's still traumatized.
Yeah,
like later when she goes into her first tornado back in Oklahoma, and she's definitely like breathing hard. Like she gets thrown back into the seat when Javi like speeds up, and she's like
she's jumpy. Yeah,
acting wise, you see that intensity, but it's really the only like directed like shot. It's really the only written in moment of this trauma. Anyway, and while that happens, you see her New York apartment, and you see that it's all like cold colors. It's all like grays and stuff that's supposed to be like, see, she's a city girl now. She's tried to distance herself. But at the bottom of her bed is like this warm tone beige and red quilt, and it's like she's still got her roots.
She doesn't have the strongest accent, but one thing I did notice is that she does have like an accent, and then
she doesn't have the strongest accent is an understatement. She has one word every 10 minutes that happens to be in an Oklahoma accent or Southern accent of some kind.
Which I guess makes sense if you move away and you actively try not to sound like that so that people don't ask you where you're from.
Yeah.
But like you could hear it, and it's funny when she goes back to Oklahoma and then she actually meets Tyler, who Glen Powell plays, Tyler Owens. He keeps calling her New York, and there are very obvious times where she says things like he kind of does, and he still calls her New York. I'm like, hello, are you not detecting the twang? The occasional twang?
I have 2 thoughts. The first being
only 2.
Think them out loud, girl.
Perhaps he might not notice because he is from the South, so he's just like, oh, that's how people from New York must talk. This is what people from the South sound like. And then, that was very bad, I'm sorry. And then...
No, I loved it.
My second thought was that as people who are neurodivergent, you might be familiar with echolalia.
Echolalia.
Not exactly. Excellent demonstration, thank you. It could just be that, you know, like when you hang out with someone who has an accent, you just have this like guttural urge to like start talking in that accent. And it's like, you're not trying to be disrespectful. You're just like, I want that. I want to do that.
This is a PSA to everyone who has an accent who's ever around any neurodivergent person. That person is not making fun of you if they do your accent. They just love it, and they see it and they go, I gotta have that.
And I also want to say that it is not exclusive to accents and words. It is exclusive to sounds. So if you bump your toe and you go, ah, I'm gonna go, ah, because It is now my vocal stim.
Neurodivergent people are just those tiny cactuses that they put in front of babies that have like voice recorders in them. And you stub your toe, and I go, ah.
That's why I love them so much. I'm like, same.
Same.
I see you.
Same. I see you.
Me? Yeah, I see you.
We're brothers. We are brothers. What did you do to my brother?
What did you say about my brother? He's not a stray, he's my brother. You stay away from my brother because I say so. I'm a fan of that one.
Okay.
I love that.
So people who are familiar with echolalia might understand that, like, being around people with an accent, you might drift into it a little bit.
Mm.
So he could just assume that it's not all that strange because he's so familiar with his own accent, or he does recognize that she's drifting into it, but he's just like, you're around Southern people, maybe that's what it is.
Are you saying he's assuming her neurodivergency?
I'm saying that Glen Powell's character, Tyler Owens, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Is an open-minded man who sees a hot lady and he goes, whatever she says goes. He said, no, it's fine. I can deal with it.
Everyone who sees Kate is an open-minded man all of a sudden. You
Bro.
know?
This
You know
is
what
the only woman who has ever existed in Oklahoma.
I guess you could say that Tyler Owens is familiar with neurodivergence because the two of them are both just Rain Men, for sure. This is a movie about
Literally.
Literally. This movie should be called Rain Man 2, Two Rain Men in Love, because they're both like weird mavericks of the industry. Is industry the right word? Field, I guess. Literal and figurative field. They both have like some kind of like spiritual connection to these storms. They see each other at work and they're like, I think what he thinks, and vice versa. Yeah, I guess you could say he's open-minded.
He saw her the first scene where he kind of sees her across the way.
He locked in.
He
as
absolutely
soon as he
in
saw
a
her.
sea of people. You could be in a room full of people and it only takes one person.
Tell him, Kat. Tell all the Oklahomies.
Oklahomies?
Did you like that?
I
Yeah.
loved it.
Shout out to all my Oklahomies.
What if they don't like that?
Tough nuts.
What if we get canceled?
By all the 3 people in Oklahoma, I think we're fine.
Oh my god, everyone knows there's at least 6 people in Oklahoma, dude.
Sorry, math isn't my strong suit. I'm glad we had Molly here to sort that out.
You listen here, Missy. You get invited to this podcast.
I'm the only person on this podcast who's ever reached over 90% on a math test.
How dare you?
You come in my house, you little rat bastard. You come in my house, mess up my furniture, tell me I don't know how to do math. I'll tell you something, around these parts, don't ever gone done over the hill done. And if I ever seen one done over there, you never know. And that's my word on that. God dang it.
4 times 5 is 20.
There was so much pain. There was so much pain in that statement. I can't breathe. Lord.
Oh, god darn it.
Oh
Good
my
work.
god.
Good work, sweetie. That was really well done.
Like, I cried a lot.
Look at this Kumon ass bitch over here. Guys, can I tell you one of my likes?
Fucking finally.
Before, when you asked me, I still didn't say one before. Just
40
we
minutes ago, dude.
got carried away on the storm winds of this conversation. But
Storm
I'll tell you one thing I
watch.
loved. Actually, I'm going to save that one because that one's romance. We'll save that one.
Girl, hit us with literally anything.
You literally
anything.
always
It's
do this. I love it so much. It makes me laugh every single time you go, I'm going to tell you something right now. Actually, no. I'm saving it.
Okay, let me tell you one thing. The villain is not the twister.
fine.
Nature is morally neutral. The villain is the man. Corporate greed. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I liked. I like that message. Send it to all the kids in Oklahoma.
But watch out, her eyes started twitching.
One thing that I noticed on the third watch of this movie that I didn't notice in the previous ones, because now I was taking notes and trying to be like specific about it. I did notice that at first when I watched it, I don't want to like open the can of worms of the romance just yet, but I thought that she didn't have as much investment in the romance. That's what I felt like at first, but later on when I watched it again, I think the reason that we don't see that as much is because her growth and character change was more focused around her surmounting her trauma. And you see it change throughout the movie. That's why we don't see that, which is fine. Because when you note the ways that she is evolving over the course of the movie, her character is focused on that aspect, so it's okay that we don't see as much of her investment in the romance. Aimee mentioned about how when she's in the car with Javi chasing her first storm after coming back, she's extremely jumpy. She has survivor's guilt from this incident in the opening sequence. And then slowly she kind of reconnects with the rest of humanity around her through the guise of going to help Javi with this storm par analysis project. And one of the first times you see her open up more is when Tyler comes to her hotel room, searches her out, comes to her hotel room with a pizza. He goes, "I thought you might be hungry." She goes, "Great, thanks." Takes the pizza, slams the door in his face. And then she's sitting on the bed and she's like, I feel bad for slamming the door in his face. Maybe I should go say sorry or something in her mind. And I don't know. I got the impression that maybe a couple minutes had passed because she had walked back over to the bed, sat down, opened the pizza, started eating it, felt bad, got back up, walked over to the door, opened the door, and he was still standing there.
Like a sad little puppy.
Oh, 5'11" Glen Powell. My Sheila. But
anyways, left in a cardboard box by the side of the road, Glen Powell.
By the river. But then she went back out, and then she went with him, and then she hung out with him, and she went with him to the rodeo, and
not her first one.
Not her first one. And he says, "What was your first storm?" Because they're kind of opening up to each other a little bit. When he asks her that, she's like, "Are you attempting to perceive me right now?" And then she shuts it down. She says, Uno reverse. What was your first storm?
I know.
And then and then a leaf comes along and tells her that a storm is coming. So her Rain Man senses start acting up, and that got interrupted. But then later on, you see her opening up a little bit more to Tyler, when they're on the ridge taking the photo, and they're talking a little bit when he comes to see her at her mom's house, and they're talking about her science fair project. And then later you see her in the car alone at the climactic scene of the movie where she drives into this enormous storm that's about to hit a theater full of people. She drives into the storm with her truck that's going to disperse the chemicals to cancel the storm, essentially cancel the twister, deactivate it, and then
to unsubscribe from the
twister. I'm over your issues. I'm unsubscribing. At one point she drives in, she puts the augers down in the ground, and then you see her literally take her hands off the wheel like that, she's accepting whatever's gonna happen. And I felt like that was a very big moment for her character's growth because it showed that she was not holding on so much to her fears of the past and the trauma that happened to her. And now she's willing to come what may, I'm going to accept it. And I hope for the best, but such is life. And it was it was a huge moment for her character. When I saw that happen, I was like, this puts a whole new frame of reference for her entire character's growth. The romance is a nice kind of it's almost like a B plot for her. Her main thing is surmounting the trauma that she endured in the opening sequence.
I agree with you. Cow princess. Princess cow. She had 2 romances. I think she had 3 romances.
The real romance is the storm you met along the way.
Literally, because I think even though she's a meteorologist, she still does the work. She's not
cowboy scientist.
Even though she still is a cowboy scientist and she's doing the work, she's not storm chasing anymore. And because she's so scared, she kind of fell out of love with it, or it's too scary to her.
Yeah.
Her whole progression and her falling back in love with storm chasing kind of directly coincides with her then falling for Tyler. Because the way that Javi was bringing her back into storm chasing was not the right way that she was supposed to get into storm chasing.
Say more.
He was doing it under the guise of capitalism, which he like understood, and he didn't want that to be the big reason. He kept still saying that like he wants to help people and this is how he's going to get money to do it.
There was a part of him that was still denying it.
Yeah,
He didn't believe it himself.
Yeah, and he's just like, he's trying to do the thing of like, he's justifying.
It was a means to an end, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But he was never going to get her back into storm chasing through that route, because eventually she was going to find out, eventually she's like, she doesn't care about money, she cares about helping people. Also, the way that Javi like has this perception of her and her relationship with storm chasing and the thing that she loves is who she was back then. You know, he's hyping her up to everybody, to that whole Storm Part team, as this person who is like great, is in touch with nature, all of that stuff. Because like some of that is still true, but it's not, she's not at the same level. And he keeps talking about her the way that she was, and she knows that she's no longer that person, right?
Yeah.
And you can see that like in a lot of ways, the way he's like, remember when?
Yeah.
Like, let's do that again.
And like,
there's a lot of like him looking backwards.
It's not his fault, because like he's known her a long time, but he also doesn't know who she is now, because that's not of no fault of his own. She doesn't answer his phone calls and texts, right?
He joined the military. They've both gone on and grown in very different ways.
Yeah.
Before they came back to see each other, and they spent no time together before he was like, come back, let's do this. This is how Kate is. It's like, okay, well.
I really like Javi. He's trying to be like positive. He obviously misses her, and then I like that he eventually tells her, you're not the only one who lost people. Like, they were my best friends as well, and yes, one of them was your boyfriend, but like I still love them. You know, I like that he calls her out on it, because she's not the only one who lost somebody. And the fact that she just cuts him off is obviously she had to do what she needed to do, but she still is left with a friend that she didn't, you know, reach out to and stuff. So like that's hard on him as well. But when she meets Tyler, he meets her where she's at in the moment. And then as he starts to find out stuff about her, then he's kind of like not being like, remember who you are, Simba. He's not doing that to her. He's just like, this is very compelling. You could do this. And then, you know, she does her whole thing where she's like, I got it wrong and blah, blah, blah. He's like, yeah, but things have changed. We have the technology now. We have this. Like now we have 2 brain cells looking at this. We can do this now.
Speaking of likes, though, I would say that scene in the barn that they have between Tyler and Kate, where they have that like really deep emotional talk, he's like, come on, like we can do this, and she's like, but I got it wrong, and you have that moment. I think that was a really phenomenal piece of acting, and I think that's what really like anchors the film. I think that had that scene not been in there, it might have just been like more of a fluffy movie that like
I agree with
a lot of people expect from a rom-com. But I think that really solidifies it, and it shows like true emotional connection between these 2 people who we see as love interests.
Yes. And I also like his thing that he says to her after she gives her very emotional speech, where he then starts talking about how the way that they categorize these twisters is not by the size of them or anything, it's the amount of damage that they do. And he says to her, how much more are you going to let this thing take from you? Oh my god, I literally have goosebumps talking about it right now.
So good.
It's so good. And he says that to her. And it's such a nice way of saying, yes, you got it wrong. Yes, bad stuff happened, but it is going to continue to be bad if you don't either face it, or if you don't turn it on its head, if you always look at it as a bad thing. You know?
It's a very empathetic way to ask her to take stock of her situation.
Yeah. So I love that that's how he said it to her. And I think that really helped convince her to then try the next morning when she asks him to, after
when he
our
walks
favorite
through
scene.
The rain.
Everybody stop everything you're doing. In July 2024, 1 hour, 21 minutes, and 43 seconds into this movie, that is the moment that I fell in love and folded for 5'11" Glen Powell, because he walks out of the house in the rain in
White t-shirt,
cowboy
hat,
tight blue jeans.
They babe.
Can I tell you guys something about that scene?
Please tell me something about that scene.
Because I love to watch an interview, a press tour, as we know.
Personally, I just rewind it and rewatch that. I'm like a thirsty mom. Like, actually, I'm like, oh, yeah, let's get that Glen Powell outside in a white t-shirt in the rain one more time. Run it back for the ladies, Glen.
I definitely did, like, drop my glasses down and look over the top of the
I was looking, observing, scanning.
Molly comes out that theater. She goes, "Oh dear." I said, "What?" She says, I fear that I might have a thing for Glen Powell."
Blonde 5'11" Glen Powell.
All the movies and all the interviews that he did before that, nothing in the wind compared to that one scene that cemented in my brain, my heart.
I saw an interview with Lee Isaac Chung. I think he was breaking down a scene in the movie. There was something. He was talking about
Oh my god, he was breaking down. Is he okay?
He was Princess on the Brink.
Yeah.
Does someone have some tissues for him? Give him a little drink of water to refresh.
He was talking about how for that scene, either the costume department or the producer or somebody, some woman, some lady, God bless her.
Genius.
Yeah, some genius who we are going to send letters and flowers to. I can't remember who it was.
Flowers.
Literally.
But she was like, okay, for this scene, we're going to put him in a white t-shirt. Because I think originally he was in the shirt that he was wearing. He was in the shirt that he was wearing the day before. And then she's like, no. Have him come out in his white t-shirt. And Lee Isaac Chung was like, okay. And she's like, make it be raining.
Okay.
And he was like, okay.
And on the third day, God said, let it be wet outside for Glen Powell in his little solo white t-shirt contest.
His slutty little waist.
He was like,
Slutty
I don't
little
understand.
cowboy boots.
He's like, I don't understand why she's asking for this. I don't
He
get
said
it.
that?
Yeah, he was like, I don't understand the reason behind this. And then they filmed it.
He said, I don't understand the female gaze.
No. He was just like, okay, why in particular
They're
this?
called lesbians, Molly. Be respectful.
And then Glen Powell comes out, they film the scene, and he's just like taking stock of the female employees, like the female crew and everybody on set, reacting to it, and he's like, oh, this is a big scene.
Should we do our impersonation of what we think that they looked like?
Hold on. Let me get in character.
Okay.
Give me a minute.
Hold on. I need a prop. Hold on. I'm a boom operator.
Oh my god, okay.
Am I going first?
Ready? Is someone gonna count us in?
Okay, 3, 2, 1.
Aimee, at the end, your face was like this.
He didn't realize like why she was like, it has to be like this and this and this. He's like, okay, queen. And then he filmed it and he went, I understand now. I got it. I got it.
Here's the thing. He didn't even understand because he saw it. He understand because he went.
I think eventually on
get it.
the little monitor, he saw him come out and his little hat touch and his look back. And he went, oh, I see what he's doing.
You
he's
know
like,
what?
okay.
Let me take a minute to find out who the costume designer was because we need to have a moment of appreciation and silence.
Are we taking space for?
We're holding
We're
space.
holding space.
We're holding
Not
space
taking space, Aimee. We're not men.
Ooh.
You ain't gotta tell me. It's just in my nature.
The costume designer for the 2024 film Twisters is Eunice Jara Lee.
Another Lee.
Hello, Eunice. Are you there? It's us, VomCom. We just wanted to thank you so much for doing the Lord's work. We wish that both sides of your pillow always stay cold and that you get a little bit of extra in every Uber Eats order by accident without having to pay. God bless.
We hope that whenever you need to, you come swiftly, and we hope that all your showers are hot, and,
Unless they need to be cold.
unless they need to be cold.
So annoying with this hat. I'm so annoying with a prop, bro.
Theater kid, look, the first step is admitting.
That scene when he gets in the car and then she taps on his window. I love how he's literally it's all sultry, and then she taps and goes.
And what's so funny too is like he's like shocked, and she's like at the window, like both hands on the window, like let's try it again. Like her eyes are wild in that scene. I don't know if you guys noticed.
I loved the sound design. The sound design was underrated queen because there was metal groaning. There was wind howling. There was objects flying by giving Doppler effect. Gaggy. I just think no one's talking about the sound design in Twister. Everyone's always Jurassic Park. What about Twister sound design? You know, it's so good. And there were so many moments where they almost like, what's the word when you make nature have human emotions?
Personification?
Yes, that. And because it felt like the weather was a character. Because they were coming in and out at strategic times and they were making all these noises. And at first, you could be mistaken to think that the weather was the villain, but they're not.
And I like that. If there was any bait and switch in this movie, it was that.
There was, and let me tell you, there was no other bait and switch. They delivered. Yeah.
One thing that I really liked about the movie was I think the cast was really great. I think that a lot of times when you get a big cast, there's often unnecessary characters, or there's like you could have slimmed this down, or like these people are the same people, things like that. But like Tyler's like crew of people that you kind of got in, the storm wranglers or whatever, they all had like distinct enough characters without them having to have a large amount of screen time. And I think that's a very handily done aspect of the writing for this, but also the acting for them to be able to like set those up and have that ensemble cast kind of.
The economy of their screen time was pretty artful considering how much of their character came across.
Should we talk about dislikes? Yeah.
I have something I'd like to say. Something I didn't like, because there's not that many dislikes. So I can say
Is it the science?
Yes. They kept on putting this animation playing on loop in the car, showing the triangulation of a tornado. How they would use 3 monitoring systems to triangulate it around a central tornado and use that to create a really sophisticated 3D image and gather data. Why did they set it up in the cafe using a spiral of water in a cup and 3 tiny like barbecue sauce containers? You could have just said triangulate. You didn't need to illustrate it like that. We're not dumb. And then they showed that animation again later in the car on a screen. So you had that animation made up just for the screen in your car? What is the use case? What is the use case, Harvey? Why do you have it on loop in your car? On the spot that should be telling you what podcast you're on. And it kept going on loop like we're dumb. And then the science is it's patchy.
The science in this movie is interesting because they deliver things that are quite simple in very explicit language. Yeah. But then things that are more complex, they kind of just like sweep under the rug. And they're like, anyway, that's that thing.
And it's the same with tech.
Let's move on.
When Tyler goes to her mom's house in the barn where her science project is, they start talking about the mathematics of why she was wrong about how much of that chemical that is like soaking up water they should send up into the twister to cancel it. She goes, I was wrong, blah, blah, blah. He goes, no, it's all here in the book. Like, what does he say? He says, I'll take the data, I'll upload it to my laptop and link it up to a supercomputer. Link it up to a supercomputer. Earlier in the movie, they're heading towards a storm, and the person driving hollers to the person in the back, boot up the hard drives. Boot them up. Sis, why were they dormant? What are they on site? What do you mean? Boot up the hard drives. So there's multiple hard drives.
They're just there.
Yeah, I would assume. And surely you've done prep for this highly tense storm in the field situation. You know, discussed the plans, prepped whatever technology and data gathering tools you could. Would you not boot up the hard drives?
Or boot up the computer that the hard drives are attached to?
That's what I'm saying. Hard drives don't exist in a vacuum. They're attached to something. If they're attached to something, why are they not on? What's the point of having them attached?
That's just how cowboy scientists play.
You know what? You're right. I'm thinking too much into it. Glen Powell, 5'11", white t-shirt.
I was going to say, it's very funny to me sometimes you guys, when we've watched movies together, obviously, and then both of you will catch on to something and really be like the minutia of it. And I'm like, in that same scene that you're talking about where like they're driving and someone hollers back, can I tell you what I was thinking?
Please.
When that's happening, I'm like, they're driving really fast. I'm like, no one else is on the road.
You're like, Twister's theory, potential spoiler, I think there's gonna be a fucking storm.
I'm like, wow, they're driving so fast. And I just keep going, how fast are they going? And then they show the speedometer and I'm like, okay, that's in
miles per hour.
miles per hour.
Oh.
And then I was just like, I'm quickly trying to see what the kilometers are, and I'm just like,
Trying to do
how
the
fast
math.
is that? And I'm like, could I drive that fast? What's the fastest I've ever driven?
I'm pleased to let you know that you are the ideal movie watcher. You are the ideal customer for every person ever making a movie, because your whole thing is, I'm going to put myself in the shoes of the person I'm watching on screen.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Molly and I are like that window doesn't make sense in that building because that window is a North American window.
I'm just mad that he looked at her notebook full of handwritten notes and went, "Oh, I'll just take your data and upload it to my laptop and then link it up to a supercomputer." So annoying. A supercomputer. Like it's a quantum computer. Honestly, I would have had more respect if he said, I have a connection at like some like, because I think Microsoft is like developing these quantum computers right now, to be like, oh, I have a connection of someone who works at such and such company, and they're working on this like software where it's like, it's what is that word I'm looking for? A predictive software for like with quantum computers. Something with a little bit of meat to it.
One other thing that I had a small qualm with is
Quantum figures.
my quantum
Quantum
physics
physics.
on this particular film. So you're kind of getting to the climax of the film, and
no, we already did in the rain, white t-shirt.
Yeah, not your personal climax. I'm talking about the climax of the film. So Tyler and Kate are at the house, and they had invited Javi over to like hand over the hard drives which they had booted up to gather their data.
Right, the hard drives. All the data is being stored on one singular physical hard drive.
That's
in the year of our Lord 2024.
Were guys a copy of the data?
Oh,
because he
that makes
give
more
her
sense.
The point is not the fact that he handed over the physical data. The point is that they are at the house together. They're trying to wrangle a tornado. And they invite Javi over to get his data to like kind of further their research. And she invites him to stay. And he declines.
Mm-hmm.
And that does not make sense to me. I think that they should have written it such that he has his moment of like realizing he should be working with them then. Because truly his idea, even when he started Storm Power, was he wanted to help people. And he says that in this scene where he's talking to Kate. He's like, I really just wanted to help people. And she's like, okay, then stay. And his response to that is, you know, there was a time when I would have done anything for you.
Yeah.
Sir, that's not what this conversation is about. It's an interesting point that maybe could have existed somewhere else in the movie, but not now. Not at this particular juncture. Anyway, that was frustrating.
They're having two separate conversations, and it's almost like she looks at him and she's like, okay, like, yeah. So, like, she is, like, focused on, I'm trying to help people. And she's like, okay, you're being like kind of a baby right now.
That was a moment that felt like, I get that a lot of his character is kind of like looking backwards, but that was a moment where I feel like his character should have been more true to himself and like been able to see that this is something he wanted to work on, and he should have stayed and worked with them on like the solution. I think it would have been nice to see the two teams to come together in that way, kind of the control people on each side come together to like make a solution. And I think it could have solidified their friendship as opposed to like making it this weird thing about how he had still like kind of had a feelings for her.
Especially because his turnaround, his aha moment doesn't happen that much later in the movie. So it's like, why not have it happen then? You know, I'm sure they could have gone two directions with it, where it's like, okay, you can have Javi do it on his own, helping them, or you can have Javi and his team helping them for the greater good of saving the people of that small town who the storm hits at the end of the movie. Either one would have been good.
Yeah. I feel like it should have happened then, though, personally.
Yeah.
I would have rewritten it such that I feel like maybe they had this idea in their head. I feel like it might have been a bit of a kill your darlings moment where they had this moment where he kind of like stands up to Scott and he's like, fuck you, I'm going to go help this town, and they were like, no, let's keep that because it's very like punchy, when I
Yeah.
think the story would have been stronger had he merged with them earlier.
Would have felt more like human.
Catherine disagrees.
I have things to say. I read it as when they just had the big storm and he goes and he finds her and she and Tyler just survived in the pool. He shows up after because he obviously realizes that where she was staying was hit, right? They reconnect, they hug, all that kind of stuff. And then in the background, he sees that Tyler is there. And then he asks her something about like, you were with him the entire time.
Mhm.
And she was like, yeah. And then she calls him out on his business practices. It's not business practices, but she calls him out on what his like either company's doing or what the goal is of the guy that he's working for. And then she gets mad at him, and then that's when she drives home. She leaves Tyler, she leaves him. So one, you can already see that he is hurt by that. So I feel like when she asks him to stay, and he's like, you know, there was a time where I would have done anything for you. Yeah, whatever the line is that he says. He had just had a moment where he saw Tyler, who he thought he was going to come across her by herself.
Yeah.
You know, he saw that, and I think that got in the way of whatever it was that she was going to say. I think he's still saying to himself, what I'm doing is helping people. And it's never as clear. It's not as clear to him and very obvious to him until Scott is like, nah, let's go get that data. And he's like, no, there are people that we need to help, because that's his like true kind of nature coming out, because he's facing that thing. And I like that it happens when Kate's not there, because then it's not Kate being like, Hobby, remember who you are again, you know?
You know what? Now that you say that, it's almost like that was his personal hero's journey, because he had to first refuse the call to action.
Yeah. That's how I saw it, because that's why he said it. One, because I think he was a little hurt by the fact that like she ran away from both of them, he thought, but then she was like holed up there with Tyler, and she's working, and she's only asking him not even necessarily to help. He's literally coming to apologize for like finding out stuff and kind of deceiving her, and she doesn't even necessarily forgive him. She goes, giving me your data is the first step. So it's only after that he gives it to her that she goes, okay, Hobby, like, you should stay. We can work on this together. Because I think, and I personally would have loved to see that whole team, but I don't think,
I know.
he says it's his team, but it's not his team. I don't think any of the equipment is his. Like, I think kind of unclear. It doesn't seem like it's up to him, because Scott is like his partner, but
also Scott is the only other person in the Storm Park who gets a name.
Yeah, we all know them by like the schools that they went to.
You don't feel connection to them as characters. That might be an extra way of separating Hobby from them diegetically.
I was thinking it as like, it's not his team necessarily. This guy is funding everything, and when you are funding people, you own them, essentially. And that's probably what they were saying. Even though Hobby wants to go help people, they didn't show up at the wreckage after the first or second storm or whatever to help people. They were there to do their job and to give out business cards and stuff. So I think he couldn't have refused it then. I like that he refused it then. You know that thing where it's like where you only know who you are sometimes in the face of either danger or big decisions. And I feel like he did it at the pivotal moment where he's like, okay, no, like I actually can't do this, and she was right and I should have stayed and all that stuff. And then he turns around, he kicks Scott out.
I hear what you're saying, and I think you're making a very valid point, but I feel like in that case the dialogue should have been tweaked just a little bit to emphasize that more.
Maybe there's a scene that got cut out.
There might have been a scene. Yeah, there might have been lines that got cut out. I also didn't read her expression as when he told her there was a time I would have done anything for you. I didn't read her expression as like, that's not what I'm talking about. Like, I personally didn't read it as that. I don't think she ever even realized, because she, you know, she was super in love with her boyfriend. He never made any advances, obviously, because she had a boyfriend, but he was always just like longingly looking at her. Every time she drove off, he's like, be careful, please.
I don't think that she was like thrown by that. My issue is more that she was having a conversation about like, I think that we might have actually found a solution to the problem we had years ago.
Yeah.
And he went, and you should, and then like he gave her the data and she went, you should stay. And he went, there was a time I would have done anything for you. And I was like, that's like a good line. There's a time I would have done anything for you. It's like very like, whoa. But I don't feel like that should have been
the thing he said next.
The thing he said. I feel like it should have been more like, I have responsibilities or something, or like I can't, like, just drop everything. Like, I feel like it should have been more about showing more where he was in his progression, less about their relationship and more about like where he was coming from in terms of like, he has Stormpar and he was trying to do something with it and maybe he like can't let go of it yet, and like that's the reason. Because I feel like even what you were getting at was that like he was still on his journey. So like, show us where he is on his journey. I want to see his story. I don't just want to see his relationship with another person. And that can be interesting and that can be important, but I don't think that's everything.
What they did to Javi is what they do to women in so many movies.
And I have an issue with it when they do it to women too. So here I am being an absolute ally.
Here is how they could have fixed it. Kate, you know I can't just drop everything for you right now. I have responsibilities. Boom.
Yeah, I think you had very valid points though, Kat. That was very, very excellently put.
Yeah, I was just seeing it as him being hurt because he saw Tyler and Tyler on the porch.
And Tyler was on the porch.
It was so funny. Like, they came out, Tyler literally just went out and he was like, hey.
Yeah.
And he went back inside like 2 seconds later. He was there just to be like,
yeah, I'm here.
Like, not to be like rude and like vulgar, but like he was truly just like marking his territory. He was just pissing on the fence posts, being like...
That's why Javi could not see past and could not even register any of the things that she was saying, because he was like, so you went to him. Yeah. I'm just gonna go back to Stonepaw where they like me. Anyways.
I'm just gonna be Princess of Stonepaw.
Okay, I was hoping one day you could respect me, Kate.
I do wish we saw a little bit more of his story and his progression, but I think that's what Twisters 2 is going to be more about.
This was Twisters 2. This was
Twisters 2, the calm before the storm.
Oh, that sounds like a prequel.
I also want to say another thing is because all of the things of him may be obvious to us that he liked her, but I don't think was obvious to everybody. I think that some people wouldn't have clocked that he liked her because it is very subtle.
Huh?
I said not to us. I said not to us. I'm saying to the other people who think that there are supercomputers out there. And that you have to start up the hard drives, okay?
Yeah, boot up the hard drives and link it up to a supercomputer.
Not we three witches.
It was like the models have come a long way.
I like the cinematography of this film, and also this film looks as good as it does because it's filmed on film.
Oh, I
That was a very excellent point, Catherine. Thank you very much for speaking up.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for bringing that up. I'd like to springboard off that and say that I totally agree.
One of the bonus features on this here DVD, Blu-ray DVD, is like a making of Twisters. And Lee Isaac Chung is talking about how important it was to him to film the film on film, because film allows you to have texture in nature. So you can see the grass, there's some like grittiness to it. It's like, when you're watching a film versus when you're watching something that was, shot on like a Netflix movie. Like a Hot Frosty. They're not filming Hot Frosty on film, Everything is very bright and kind of...
We're trying to get the 8-pack abs.
Yeah, you're getting the 8-pack abs. You're getting everyone's wrinkle and everything. That's why people keep getting cosmetic surgery, because no one's filming on film as much, and you look naturally better on film. Because
so how often do people still film with film then? It's
not that often. It's really certain directors. So like a Christopher Nolan is more likely to film on film. Who's his feet guy? Quentin. Quentin's gonna film on film.
Quentin Tarantino. Guys, I gotta say, this conversation is a nightmare for non-native English speakers, because film the film on film. What do you mean?
They shot the film. They shot the movie on film. There we go.
Yeah, come on, synonym
This
queen.
movie was recorded in the medium of film.
Sound like you're on NPR. I love it. I love it.
Twisters 2024 was recorded on the medium of film.
I felt that in my pussy.
I feel like you sounded like someone just now. You sound like the Turner Classic Movies guy.
Yeah.
I do love Turner Classic Movies.
But that was really my other that I wanted to point out, because we didn't talk about that.
I love that.
Okay. Molly, you had some dislikes.
I didn't like that when they were trying to run towards the storm, the big storm at the end of the movie, they were running like, we gotta go help the people in the town that the storm is gonna hit. What are you gonna do? What are you, 5 people in a van, gonna do for the whole town if you can't disrupt the storm? They're like, we gotta go help them. I'm sorry. What specific skills do you have that's gonna help them? Because these people, everyone, I'm assuming most of the people who live there grew up there, in a place called Tornado Alley. Now, if you live in a place called Tornado Alley, and if you were born and raised there, don't you think that you would know through osmosis and maybe education system and stuff like that how to not get tornadoed? Don't you think that the people who live there have the skills to know to go to a basement or go to a bunker or whatever the case may be and to get? Meanwhile, this crew of people rolls up into town and they say, go, go, go into the theater. Thank you so much for doing your part, your civic duty. Everyone's shouting that, bro. You didn't help in any tangible way. But I like that they wanted to go because they're good people.
That was purely for the advertisements for the movie. They just really wanted to have that clip of everyone being like, go to the movie theater, get to the movie theater. Which
That
was
actually was
literally
fun.
what a lot of the ads were.
When the storm pulls up on that town, they're having like a street fair, a street bazaar, and the storm's already like really hitting, and the wind is hard, and people are still like trying to grab their little tchotchkes.
If you live in a place called Tornado Alley and a wind picks up, do you maybe just leave your like handmade clay tchotchkes there and go inside? Do you maybe just read the room?
Maybe just look at the sky.
But I did like that scene because Javi had his redemption by coming and using the leverage to save our boy.
I also want to thank Eunice Lee for putting Javi in a semi-tight blue polo, because that was nice.
Oh my god, what did that girl call it in the first scene? She said, wrinkle-free? Hey, wrinkle-free fabric.
She said, okay, uniforms, wrinkle-free shirts.
I think that Boone has a lot of good quotes in the movie. Like, they're really, like, throwaway lines. But there's this one point where he, like, pets the drone. He said, I genuinely can't even remember what he said. He, like, pets the drone. And it just, like, truly, like, moves on. Or this one part at the very end where she crawls out of the vehicle and he's like, I think I love you.
I like when Kate joins the Storm Wrangler side of the team and they're racing to some storm site against Stormpar. And he says, these storm buttheads are cutting us off.
His lines are so good. And they're just
I love him.
There's really no substance to it, but it's truly just like a little himbo along for the ride.
Just vibes.
Yeah.
Guys.
What?
How do you feel about the most controversial part of this movie? The fact that they didn't even smooch in the movie. What do we think?
So, Aimee, when you were setting up, I was talking to Molly about how there's a deleted scene / they filmed a scene, but I don't even know if they included it in the deleted scenes this year.
Did they delete it?
Who knows?
They double deleted it. They deleted it from the deleted scenes. That's crazy. Scorched earth.
But they filmed this kiss scene.
Yeah.
They filmed a kiss.
Capital K kiss scene, girl.
In the airport.
That's a logical place to have it.
Yeah.
If we're being logical, completely logical and theoretical and not emotional at all.
If we're being logical about kissing, they did not include the kiss into the movie, but it was a capital K kiss.
As a regular viewer of
kissing? As a kiss enjoyer myself.
As a regular viewer of Asian dramas, which often have more of an extended, protracted romance.
Yeah.
I am not deterred by the fact that physical intimacy was slow to come. I would say that this watch, I was kind of like more taking into the fact that most of the romance of this particular movie was carried on Glen Powell's shoulders. That's not to say that I think that Daisy Edgar Jones was not interested in Glen Powell's character. I think that she showed it. It is in a lot more subtle ways, though.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of her indications that she was into him were just kind of like her opening the door for him, literally and figuratively. Like when she opened the door and was like, okay, he brings her the pizza, she closes the door, opens the door again, and she's like, okay, well, you can come in. There was a lot of times where she just like opened up a little bit, and that was her like allowing him to continue to court her. I would say that the majority of the romance hinges on the fact that Glen Powell is very gazy, and that is one of the two tenets of a good romance anyway. The first being a man that is very gazy, and the second being chemistry. And I think these two had it.
Yeah. His priority was falling in love with her. Her priority was falling in love with storms again. And he was just a nice bonus to that.
Yeah.
When she was like, when she was so excited about storms again, then she starts looking at him a little bit more longingly, a little more fondly, and I was like, she's opened her heart back up to the storms. Now to a man.
Yeah. Kate's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The bottom is get over the trauma. The middle section is
love storms.
Fix storms. And then the peak top section is white t-shirt smooching.
Ride a weather cowboy.
Save a weather truck. Ride a other man. Run around the corner.
If you feel it, chase it. Is her first.
If you feel it, chase it, and you don't face your fears, you ride them. Around here,
I used to be a rodeo rider.
Fucking what Maine college right down there in Louisiana. Hit my head one too many times. Come back up. Thought to myself, let's avoid the CTE. Went home to my Meemaw. Made me a pie. Love pie.
I don't know what's happening.
Oh, my life.
Can I say Scott is very hot?
Scott is hot in an annoying way. Like, he's even more annoying.
Scott is objectively a well-built man, but every single thing that comes out of his mouth makes me...
I was so on board for it. He was so grumpy, and I was like,
you grumpy sunshine-ass bitch. You absolute sunshine hoe.
If they just added a couple more lines, a couple more scenes, the way that he easily also could have just been slotted in as a third.
A love square.
Are you a white shoes motherfucker?
What's that? What's that? What is that?
Explain. Aimee, explain to your sister. Explain to your sister what a wide shoes is.
In a romance genre, there are different options. And different ways you can describe that the way a romance is going to go. For example, you can set it up and tag it as enemies to lovers, friends to lovers to enemies. Set up a love triangle, which implies that one of the characters will end up with one of the others, but not both. A why choose is a situation in which there are multiple prospects, and the choice does not need to be made. The main character, YN, will end up with all.
Great. What's the problem?
Exactly.
She just thinks it's funny that I have to explain it to you on a podcast that will be publicized.
Daisy Edgar Juggler.
I'm also very good at making things that are very intimate, very objective and formal and corporate. So I should be in HR or like something like that.
The way I would have explained it to her would have been like, if you were in a room with Pedro Pascal, Oscar Isaac, and Adam Driver, and they were all like, we're fine with anything you choose, and you were like,
stop, you're embarrassing me.
D, you said D, all of the above. That's how I would have described it.
Blushing.
What would those three be for you, Catherine?
Yeah, this is a great question.
Had her face.
Matthew Good.
Good. And Lee Pace and Chris Pine, maybe?
Really, Chris Pine, eh? What's so funny is
the first two are locked in. I know.
I would have gone the comedy route. I would have been Seth Meyers.
No, because every time we list like handsome dudes, the first two that always come out of Kat's mouth are Matthew Good, Lee Pace.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You're thinking like the hot version. I'm thinking the people she's attracted to like mentally.
Guys.
And so like very, very first person I was going on that is
Aimee, why choose?
Guys, it doesn't have to only be three.
Hold up. Mm-hmm. Andy Samberg. Got you, bitch!
The best of both worlds.
Oh my god. My God.
Seth Meyers is very handsome, by the way.
You know how when people are like, what's your favorite movie? You go, okay, of which genre? It's the same for me. It's like, okay, what's the genre of man? Are we talking about comedic men? Are we talking about Hugh Laurie in House?
Oh.
Is there a man you don't find attractive? Not in a judgmental way, truly just in like a you can
She's fanning herself.
You can see this of life.
I asked myself this very question today.
Yeah.
Because I saw an edit of Hugh Laurie. I've been seeing a lot of edits of Hugh Laurie in House MD. And
yeah,
I was like,
yeah,
do I have a problem? Because I can see the good.
You're just an appreciator.
I can fix him.
I'm an appreciator. It's very hard for me to choose.
You know, all the king's horses and all the king's men, really.
Mm-hmm. Oh, my Catherine the Great.
Excellent use of context.
Thank you.
Comedy queen.
Really love a disaster film that has a little romance to it. Ian hates that I say this, but one of my like favorite
The Day After Tomorrow. No, seriously.
Are you fucking kidding me? A young Jake Gyllenhaal and Emmy Rossum?
I know, they're so fine.
And then they're camping out at New York City Library and falling in love among sleeping bags. Are you joking?
This is a Hermione fic.
It is. I'm cutting that out.
You know, take a little bit of high tension and make it what's the word I'm looking for? Distill the romance. Hey, why not springboard the romance with a little bit of trauma bonding? Disaster movie.
I love.
Only one sleeping bag.
Yeah.
Only one zombie bite.
Well, it is forced proximity.
Yeah, it's all of the things I love.
Forced Proximity is a good song name. And it's like by the 1975 or something.
Aimee, what were you saying about the romance?
Oh, I was just thinking about what tropes it does touch on. And to be honest, a few of the tropes that it does, like, carry through are mostly just tropes from the original movie. Like, the idea of, like, I'm not back. Kate came back. I'm not back. Like, that type thing. That's the original, like, version of that was from the original Twister movie. And, like, there's some carry forward of, like, the Dorothy 5 is the current iteration of the machine they have. And the one that they got to work in the original Twister movie was the Dorothy 4. So, like, a lot of the kind of, like, throwbacks and, like, callbacks are all to the original movie, which is kind of nice. Grounds it a bit.
This is like a reboot done right, like a sequel done right.
Yeah.
A requel, a rebequel. Yeah, because it's not a direct sequel where it's like Kate is Helen Hunt. Who is it? Helen Hunt? No.
I think so.
Oh, it's Helen Hunt. I like that Kate's not, like, no one is related to those people. You know, I like that it's a whole different thing, and there's some things that kind of stay from the movie, and it's not this exact same things where even Kate's mom is like the sister of that character. You know, like, I like that there's so much separation. I actually, like, I've watched the first Twister before watching Twisters in theaters last year. And I think I had to see it again, but I really hated the romance in that movie. Yeah. So that's why I was so excited about the way that they did this, because it's just so much more human. And one of the things I wanted to say about the romance is that she's like never sexualized. She's never, you know, like, Kate, take care of yourself, slap some lipstick on. Like, they really, really admire her for her big brain and all of the other things that she has to offer. And like, I think one of the other things that we all loved was when her and Tyler were out and they were looking at a storm and they were both like, you know, gushing over the storm. And he was like, she's perfect. And he's looking in the sky. And then she's taking photos with her film camera. And she goes, she's gorgeous. And he whips his head around, like, to stare at her. He's like, I thought he had said something out loud, like, oh yeah, she is. But that would have been too cheesy. Yeah. But the way that he just whipped around where...
And just looks at her.
And just capital letters looks at her, okay? The way...
And that's not even that's like one time in like of like 3 or 4 in like a 10-minute period of him just being like...
Yeah, just fully puppy dog eyes looking at her. Like, fully heart eyes. And so much so to the point where one of his people on his team, when she like makes a joke at his expense the night after they all chased a storm, they were all at a motel.
Holiday Inn.
Yes, thank you. And she makes a quip to him about how she would not trust a guy who puts his face on a t-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone around him is like, ooh. And he's just watching her walk away. And he's like,
I like that.
To the point where it's one of my favorite quotes where the girl who controls the drone, I can't remember her name, but she goes, oh my God, look at his face. And they're all like openly talking about it. And he's just on the roof of the truck. Like,
and did you notice in that scene when Ben, the journalist who's following the tornado wranglers, asked her offhandedly, oh, what's your surname, by the way? Like, I might need to reference you in the piece. When, like, Tyler was, like, kind of, like, looking down, fixing something, and then he said, what's your surname? And he whipped his head around. He was like, I'm interested to know this information, too.
And that was another opportunity for her to be like, no information, thank you. You don't need to know me. Kate is fine. Kate will work.
And then later, when he is having dinner with Kate and her mom at her mom's house, the most lucky look that he does when he says, when you love something, you spend your whole life trying to understand it. And then he looks at her immediately right at her. And the mom is like,
should I leave?
Yeah, should I leave in my own house?
Can I also say, there was not like sexualization of anybody in this film, which is great. Like, no, listen. He is in a white t-shirt, but like, how easy would it have been for him to be like shirtless? You know what I mean?
It's true. Oh my gosh.
It is so
respectful.
It is so female gaze at the fact that we are all lusting over him in clothes.
A fully clothed man.
Fully clothed man. Hat to boots. He is fully clothed. This is all so cemented in our brain. And like in Anyone But You, he is mostly naked. And I barely wanted to watch it. You know, like it's not like he's unattractive. It was just like, I don't need to see it sometimes.
And one of the things that I was thinking too is that from our perspective as the audience, kind of like viewing him, but also him viewing her, we talked about how he's very gazy, how he looks at her a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that one of the strengths of this movie is that his interest in her is not purely of a sexual nature. The fantasy of this film is that a man, i.e. 5'11" Glen Powell, is impressed by a woman's skill. And that's what draws him to her.
And that's why I'm not mad that they don't kiss.
I was so happy that they didn't. Because
the thing is,
the look they give each other at the airport was like almost more intimate, way more charged.
They're gonna kiss.
Yeah.
Later.
Yeah.
They did film a scene where they kissed that got cut.
Yeah.
That scene was fully edited and the composer of the movie scored it and then it got cut. That and the clip that I saw was of the composer talking about how he's happy that it did get cut for all the reasons that we just said. Like, I didn't feel like I was missing anything by not having a kiss in the movie. I didn't even really realize that they didn't kiss until like we left the theater 20 minutes later.
We were talking about the romance and we were like, oh, wait a minute, it never actually got to that point.
Yeah. I think that if, you know how the reaction you guys had when people blew away?
Yes.
I think that if they had kissed, I would have been like, I would have laughed. I think it would have taken me out of the movie more than supercomputer, hard drive, all that stuff, because I was like, it doesn't fit into this movie.
The natural progression of their relationship wasn't that.
Of the relationship, if Kate all of a sudden kissed him, like she keeps putting herself out there and telling him like, you keep talking about chasing, so chase it. And then for her to like give in and just all of a sudden kiss him.
Yeah.
They've known each other a week. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's not on brand.
Yeah, she was holding her card so close to the chest up until the day before. Yeah. And then the day where she had a near-death experience and it kind of like, she's a little bit more open-minded now.
Yeah. When they're hiding from one of the storms and they're both in the pool and he's basically doing the thing that her boyfriend was doing and it was a flashback. Did you notice that the mom in that scene, the lady who was covering her child, she was the one who was saying, I got you, I got you?
Yes.
Yes.
I liked that the scene was very similar. I really appreciated that it wasn't him saying it.
Yeah, that would have been corny.
Yeah, it would have been very corny. I was like, thank God, because he's not replacing her boyfriend Jad, you know?
Yeah.
Like they're very much two different people. It's not like
Yeah.
she loves him or she likes him because he reminds her of her first boyfriend. Like
Yeah.
I just like that everyone is essentially their own people except for the Stormpar team.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
The reason why there's so many tropes and there are so many things that could be corny but aren't is because it's playing on this line.
Mhm.
Like it's playing with fire. It's pushing almost all the way through the barrier of what would be corny, but it stops short every time. It's almost like a high taste level
Yeah.
of the writers and everyone involved. And also something, Aimee, that you had mentioned to me before was something that keeps it firmly in the non-corny category is the fact that there's something very earnest about the movie because there's so many grounding human moments, so many things that are very vulnerable that the characters undergo or endure. They're pushing themselves to be better the whole time, and it's like very like heartfelt.
I had seen this TikTok about what makes something camp and how a lot of people will try to do camp, but what they're missing out on is this level of earnestness. And so like there's a certain amount of self-awareness, but a certain amount of earnestness that can like stop it from being ridiculous. This movie almost felt camp in the fact that it was like it was setting up and meeting all of these tropes. It was expected in the sense that it followed through on all of these setups it made, but it was not fluffy or useless because it was grounded by these genuine moments of connection between these characters.
I think that's why Lee Isaac Chung, not only him being from Oklahoma, but I think that's why he was such a good choice for director of this movie, because from what I understand of his work, that's what he's good at. I like going up to the trope, stopping short so it doesn't go all the way into corny. I like this idea of a love triangle. I like that when she goes off on her own to actually stop the big old storm, Javi and Tyler are actually like kind of working together, and Javi helps save Tyler. You know, he's not just like, whatever, leave him. You know, he's like, I like that. I like that they both go run up to her and, you know, shows that they really like care for her. I like the scene at the end where Tyler runs after her in the airport and Javi goes, "Attaboy," you know? I like that. I like so much of it.
I'd also like to say that I think it was really important that she was the one who was able to reach the pinnacle of her story on her own. And it wasn't like carried by men like it is in some other like women's stories. They're at the same place that she's at, but there's no part of them that's like, you can do it, girl, I'll go finish your thing, or like being like some weird like either like emotional or physical crutch for her. She sees what's happening. She makes the decision to go and she follows through, and that's entirely on her. The autonomy of it is beautiful.
Yes.
I love that they didn't go with her. I like that she was the one who did it by herself.
And they didn't have that whole like back and forth of I'm gonna go, no, don't. No, I'm going. No, please. No, at least let me go with you. Fine. You know, like that whole
I can't lose you. You know, yeah. I don't think we gave Glen Powell enough credit for his emotional acting in this movie, because when they had that scene in the barn where she gives that whole speech, he was crying.
I was saying that was the emotional crux of this film.
Yeah. She said something to him, but he was crying because he's so like empathetic to her, which is like
and earnest.
We love that.
Yeah.
That helps so much, you know, instead of him being like, I get it, princess, but that was in the past.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't
no
that.
one's looking anyone in the eye and they're all just like, yeah, anyway.
I just want to see that all the time.
And then when he thinks that she got swept up into the storm, the way he looked so traumatized and he needed like actually a moment. I just love that they paint this picture of him as this hillbilly with a YouTube channel. And he is that, but he also is, you know, more. He's truly a three-dimensional character.
Scientist.
He's also a cowboy scientist. But yeah, that's really what I have to say, is that I like that, and it adds to the romance and his feelings.
Should we discuss some of our favorite quotes then? There was a lot of like funny little like throwaway ones that I liked. Like when they pull up to the gas station and Kate's like, who are they? And they go, chasers out of Arkansas. I thought that was really funny. And when they're getting into his car after Kate and Tyler kind of join up for the first time and they're going to try their theory for the first time, and she's just like opening shit, and he's like, have you ever been in a car before?
I like that line.
I thought those were both really funny, but my favorite quote is not really a quote, so I hope you'll let me get away with this one. I really liked, at the end of the movie, the way that they made use of Charlie Crockett's Run Horse Run. I think that was perfectly lined up. Shout out to the sound designer on this one, or whoever, would like work with that. But it was literally like, you're hearing the first verse of it, and he's like kind of sitting in there in his car, and he's trying to figure out like what to do. He's kind of like broiling a little bit from her like looking him in the face and being like, if you feel it, chase it, and kind of like egging him on to like pursue her. And he's sitting in the car, and all of a sudden the chorus comes on, and it's like, run horse, run. And he like shoves the augers into the ground and gets out to chase her. And I was like, yeah.
Yeah, everyone's like riling, jumping out of their seats, hooting and hollering, swinging their cowboy hats around.
Also, shout out Paul Scheer for being the guy at the airport.
Oh yeah, I thought I recognized him.
Yeah. And Molly, what about you?
There's only one quote that I have written down that I didn't already mention, and it's when Tyler says, "You're a long way from home, city girl." Fold. Immediately.
Yeah.
Fold. Next. I was done for.
Should I get a mop?
Yeah.
Get a bucket and a mop.
Yeah. Because the way he said it, I think he did one of these. God, it's just too much for my little heart.
He's also like out the gate is flirting with her, and I was like, oof.
Which I love.
From the second he locks eyes with her, like across the way, and then he goes and walks up to her while she's staring at the sky. I was like, if she was just like, I'm only here 1 week. I'm here to do a job. Please leave me the fuck alone. And he just, every time she looks, he's like,
that's a good call, city girl. Hey, I said it's a good call, city girl.
Oh my God. That was so
funny.
I love how
part.
like openly kind of desperate he is. He's not like trying to play it cool. He's very actively like, I am interested in you.
We love a desperate man.
No, he's pursuing her actively, and this is the thing we were talking about in When Harry Met Sally. He is a male character, or any character who's not bound by their ego is so attractive.
Yeah.
He's not bound by his ego to be macho, and even though he's got a lot of these like signifiers of being like hyper manly and from the South, and he's a hillbilly and he's a storm chaser and fireworks and blah blah blah, he's like so unbothered by being perceived as someone who is doing the pursuing and who's kind of a simp and who's very sweet and vulnerable and all the things we like to see.
Yeah, I agree.
What about you, Kat?
Javier says at the beginning, Kate woke him up and he was clearly like hungover, and they're talking about how Kate is seeing like clouds or something, and he goes, how about Kate sees a few more hours of sleep, huh? And that was funny. I mentioned hillbillies with a YouTube channel, and then Scott says, guess we're listening to Dandelions now.
All of Scott's quotes are either him being like, but the data.
Yeah.
Or him being like,
that one has better numbers.
Who's this bitch?
Yeah. Who's this dandelion staring up in the sky, bitch? I have facts and figures.
That one has better numbers, are like 50% of his lines.
He's just so like, he's like, we have a job to do, Javi. Hello?
We have quotas to meet.
Yeah.
Scott's like, we don't have time for a romantic subplot.
Tyler says to Ben, the reporter, when he's taking a photo of Kate on the landscape. Ben takes a photo, and Tyler goes, she is your story, Ben.
You corny ass bitch.
And then a pause, and then he goes, get me a copy of that.
Molly loved that line too.
Bro, she is your story, Ben? Because Ben kept being like literally one of the other things I wrote down was Ben's line of, he was like, she's intriguing because she is Miss Kate, no last name. And then Tyler keeps going, hey, focus on my YouTube channel. Hello, we have 1 million subscribers. And then just like, again, not bound by ego, he's looking at Kate, knows where the story is. He knows that she's the one, you know, even though he helped her, he knows that it's from her. And he tells Ben, this is your story. And I was like, this is it.
Once again, a man who can let go of his ego.
Yeah.
Also, get me a copy of that.
Bro, get me a copy of that? What are you gonna, so you can fucking...
Bank.
That's exactly what I was saying.
Guys, how dare you?
Like he was literally fully closed photo of Kate taking a photo of the storm.
Bro, how dare the both of you? He was literally just gonna go to Michael's, get it printed and framed professionally, and hang it up and stare at it lovingly. How
in front
dare
of his
you?
bed so he could
on the ceiling. Molly, what is your rating for this film?
10 out of 10.
10 out of 10 what?
10 white, wet t-shirts out of 10.
Amazing.
No notes. Perfect movie. Wait, Kat, what's your rating?
I am giving this movie 10 fire NATOs out of 10.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, brother.
Excellent work.
Thank you. Aimee,
Yes.
what is your rating?
10 booted up hard drives out of 10. I genuinely think that this is as perfect as a rom-com can get. This is a blueprint for what a good rom-com should be. So I don't see any reason to take, even if I have qualms about it, I don't have to see any reason to take points away from it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I agree.
Agreed.
Molly,
Yes.
where can people find you on the internet if you want them to find you?
You can find me at Molly's Outbox on Instagram and TikTok, and you can find the podcast at VomCom Podcast on Instagram, TikTok, anywhere you listen to your podcasts, and also on YouTube if you want to watch the video version. And Aimee, how about you? Where can people find you if you want them to find you?
Don't call me.
She
Don't
said,
come by my house.
She said,
I don't know you.
don't perceive me. I'm looking at the sky.
I'm good, man. I'm just here for a short time. Also not a long time.
Why don't you pass it along to Kat?
Hey Kat, where can they find you?
The people can find me at It's Catherine Ram on literally anything. Do you guys know that when I was a kid, my friends and I, we all adopted personalities, and like someone was like, I'm Miss Star, I'm Miss Sun, I'm Miss Moon.
Aww.
Do you know that I was Miss Clouds?
Clouds are my favorite. I stare at clouds all the time.
Me too.
That's so cute. I love that.
So when she was staring at clouds, I was like, I feel seen.
So cute. Aww.
I love that.
I forgot to tell you guys earlier.
I used to love standing out in the storm until I became an adult, and then I was like, perhaps not safe.
The worse the weather, the happier the girl.
When she said that, I was like, that seems like Aimee. Okay, bye.
Bye! If you feel it, chase it.